So one of the questions that have constantly been asked is how much I spent on the entire journey, the entire process of my DV lottery situation. Yeah, for those who do not know, I won the DV lottery in 2021 and I moved to the United States in 2022. So the question has always been, Rachel, how much did you spend on the entire process? Now, I am going to honestly, I think it's a disclaimer that the time that I traveled, since then, like up to now, things have really changed. Yeah, so whatever it is that I'm going to be giving you is what I spent, is what I incurred, like the cost of the things that I had to spend on. That is the amounts that I'm going to be giving you. I'll be giving you the US dollar figure and the Ugandan shillings figure. Again, for those who do not know, I am an immigrant from Uganda, and at that point, if you are watching my face for the very first time, or you're watching this video for the very first time, thank you for choosing to watch this video. And if you've been you're a constant, you're the real MVP, and I thank you for sticking around. My name is Rachel Agasha and I am an immigrant from Uganda. I typically share my experience, my challenges, for some of the questions, for some of the things that I do not know. I do some kind of research and reply to every comment that I get. Yeah, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about how much I spent in its entirety, of like everything that I spent on, how much I spent. And like I said earlier, it could be different from what you spent or what you will be spending. Yeah, so it's a whole typical situation of, if you are a family, you're not going to spend as little as I did. Yeah, and also if you're a family of like 5, 10, it varies. Yeah, so we're going to be breaking it down from a point of one person, of just me, because when I traveled, I was just by myself. So depending on how big your family is, you're just going to get my figures and multiply by the number of your family members. Because again, when you win the DV lottery, you've won as a family. For as long as you included these guys when you applied for the DV lottery in the first place, you are going to travel with every one of them. However, I recently learned that if you can actually travel by yourself, probably come, make some money, and then, get your family here, which I think is a big deal, is a good deal, because the money is a lot. Like, there are so many things that you have to spend on, and that also leads to my next point. The items or the documents or the things that you need to have vary, and therefore will determine how much you have to spend. So in fact, let's just get into this video. So one of the prerequisites, one of the requirements that you should have is a letter of good conduct. Now, from where I come from in Uganda, our letter of good conduct is not free. You have to actually schedule a whole appointment. You have to first make an appointment after you have paid the fee. So I paid 80 Ugandan shillings. Yeah, which is about 25 US dollars, if my math serves me right. So from wherever you're from, you can just convert that. And I mean, I do not know if in some countries the letter of good conduct is free or not, depending on where you come from, right? Yeah, then another thing is going to be the passport. You definitely need a passport. So by the time I was selected, I had a passport already, but I had an old passport. So we needed to transition from the initial Ugandan passports to the East African Community passports. And I paid 250 Ugandan shillings for that. That is around like 100 USD or less. Yeah. So that is how much I paid for my passport. Then when we move from the passport, you're going to need a birth certificate. Now, if your parents were good enough or kind enough or responsible enough, or they took the initiative to actually keep the birth certificates, because for us who were born long time ago, some of those things get lost somewhere. But if you have your birth certificate, that is a good thing. But if you don't, you might have to pay to get, I think it's a notice or something, and I paid 5,000 Ugandan shillings for that, which is less than a US dollar, honestly. So that is, I think, the cheapest thing, you know. Then from there, we're going to move on to the medical exam. The medical exam is also not free. But then before the medical exam, I want to talk about the vaccines. There are various vaccines that you can get before you actually go for the medical exam, because if you do not have these vaccines, you're going to have to get them from IOM or wherever it is that the embassy tells you to get your medical exam from, and this is going to be way more costly because these guys are making money. It's the peak, you know, and at this point you have no turn back. So I would recommend that you do, like, you get the vaccines from wherever you are from, because in Uganda, we do the medical exam from Nairobi. So you want to get your vaccines from Uganda. Hepatitis B, yellow fever, everything that you can, because what happens is they send you like a list of the diseases that they have issues with. So when you look at this and you know there is a vaccine that I can get it, because it will be cheaper back home than at the IOM in the last minute. Yeah. So I paid they'll actually tell you to have at least 1.5 million Uganda shillings. Yeah. So that is around 410 USD, which is a lot. But then also it varies, because when you get there, they'll charge you according to what vaccine that you get. So I recommend that the more the better. Have your vaccines on you before you actually go to Nairobi. That might kind of mitigate the prices. Now, we already talked about Nairobi. So if you are Ugandan, you definitely don't live in Nairobi. So there's that transport cost. Yeah, you have to move from Uganda to Nairobi. I paid 150,000 Uganda shillings for my bus from Uganda to Nairobi, to and fro. That is 300 USD. I mean 300 Ugandan shillings, which is about I think 100, less than 100 US dollars. Yeah. So that is another cost. I always tell people that in my thinking, I just say have about 12 million Uganda shillings if you are one human being. But again, this is without practically everything, because if we count everything to the last detail, it's a bit more than 12 million Uganda shillings. Anyway, from that, you're going to have to go for the interview. So before you actually do your interview, you're going to pay for the visa. This is a non-refundable fee, and I paid 330 US dollars. Now, when you are in Nairobi, they will tell you to use either currency. You could use the dollar or use the Kenyan shillings, but you can't use both. So when I got to the embassy, I think my dollars were less of, I don't know, $10 or something. So I asked if I could just top up with the Kenyan shillings, and they're like, no, you choose to either do Kenya shillings or the US dollar. So I had to go to the bank and convert, you know. Now, another detail that you will not know until you get to the embassy is that these guys will not take a US dollar note that was made before 2009. So when you get there, if you're one person who pays attention to details, because I got to see these after I got them, like, oh, okay. So when you go to the exchange forex bureau and you're changing your money, tell them you only want notes that were printed 2009 and above, because they will refuse that note. And you know what's funny is that morning you're in a lot of pressure, eh? The last thing you need is anyone telling you, oh, you know what, we don't need this, or this is not going to work, or this or that. No, you just want to have your everything together. So I recommend that before you go for that interview, please check the notes that you have. I don't think they mind the Kenyan shillings, but the dollar, you know, in Africa they're so sensitive about the dollar. Or you're not supposed to fold it, or it's not supposed to have a tear. All those things, just pay attention to that to avoid those last minute frustrations. Then now, of course, you are in a country that is not your own now, unless you have family in Nairobi or Kenya. Also, when you go to Kenya, please get a residence that is close to the embassy, because if you stay far away from the embassy, it's very inconveniencing in terms of transport. Now again, because remember, you have to be there on time, so they're telling you your interview is at 7. What time are you going to wake up exactly? You know, so you want to get a place. So accommodation is also another thing. Personally, when I went to Nairobi, I lived with family, so I did not incur the cost of transport from and to and from the embassy. I did not incur accommodation costs. At this point, I would recommend that you make friends in those countries, because at this point you might be running broke. Because you see, after your interview has been approved, your visa has been approved, you're going to require to stay in Nairobi for another week to wait for your passport, unless you have somebody in Nairobi who you can tell, hey, you know what, I'm leaving you with my national ID. Because again, when you go to the DHL that you selected and ask them to send your passport to, when you go there, they're going to require your ID. So you probably leave your ID with somebody and be like, oh, you know what, when you're done, when they're done, just get my passport for me and send it to Uganda for me, which I think is a bit risky. You can't be sure that your document will arrive in one piece. So make friends in these countries just to, cut off those costs. Because for me, I remained in Nairobi and I was chilling and I was lounging. I'm like, you know what, living my best life. So another fee that you're going to have to pay is the green card. So they'll tell you in the instructions that you need to send them $220 for them to process your green card. Now there's a note. If you pay for this green card the very first time and the payment is not successful, you pay an extra $30. So I would recommend that you do not do this from your African country. Travel to the US. You don't have to do it from home. Travel to the US, because here it's easier. You can send them a money order, you can send them a check, or you can even pay online. It is much easier here than back home. In my situation, we went to Centenary Bank, we paid for this green card, only for them to send us a letter saying, oh no, your transaction over what did not go through, those things. So I paid $250 for my green card, and it should have just paid $220. So just keep that in mind. Then another thing that you're going to definitely have to pay for is your air ticket. And I think the air ticket is the most expensive fee to pay at this point. I also realized a round trip is cheaper than a one-way trip. So I paid 4.5 million Uganda shillings, which is about $1,231. That is 4.5 million Ugandan shillings. Now, I was initially supposed to pay 6 Ugandan million shillings. And if you want the plug to pay a cheaper air ticket, please let me know. And I will see if I can get you the details of this person and you can get your air ticket a bit cheaper. But I think that's pretty much everything. But like I said, I always say I approximately spent around 12 million Uganda shillings, which could be more because I'm not counting how much I spent on printing. Mind you, everything that you have as an original, you need to have a photocopy as well. I did not count how much I had to spend on the photographs. I did not tell you how much I had to spend on transport to and from all those places. So It's a lot, but again, it's not a thing that happens in one day. They give you a whole year to put yourself together. So if you have to work thrice, if you have to talk to relatives, if you have to sell some property, of course they tell you do not sell your property until your visa has been approved, because anything can happen. And I'll also re-say that until your visa has been approved, it's not over. Yeah, because anything can happen, and you don't want to be in a place where you've quit your job. You don't want to be in a place where you've sold your property, so I hope this video helps you. You could share this with someone who you think needs this information, and don't forget to leave a like for the video, leave a comment if you have anything to say. If you have an opinion to share, please share it in the comment section to help the other person who needs this information. And yeah, I'll see you in our next video. Take care and stay safe. Bye bye.